Mabuhay and welcome. That's lame. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tez Milan. I am a Filipino-American creative. I wanted to try this DIY, do-it-yourself, at-home way of dyeing and covering up my grays with coffee that I found on the internet. Dyeing your hair is really, really aggressive on your scalp. It's aggressive on your skin, on your hair follicles, on your hair. And I don't want to start this precedent of like dyeing my hair constantly for like 30 gray hairs since I'm a mature YouTuber, and then end up like having like really cruddy hair when I'm like, you know, older. I'm gonna take this hot pot of coffee because I'm not gonna just pour that on my head because I'll burn myself. I'm gonna pour myself a cup of coffee and then I'm going to put the rest in the fridge to cool down so that I can then do the mixture that is required to then put on my hair, and then we will dye the hairs. Let's go do this and let's see if this actually will work because I've never done this before. So now that the coffee is cooling, I also wanted to have a conversation with you about beauty standards in the Philippines, in the Philippine culture, among Filipino Americans, and just the world, like what it is that they expect of us in terms of beauty. When I grew up in Arizona, I remember scratching my arms because I wanted the dark skin cells to flake off and then the whiter, brighter skin cells to come out, and I would then look like Barbie. And I really wish that I had blue eyes, and I wish I had blonde hair. And then I was pinching my nose. And it's interesting because my mother never told me straight out, oh, you need to lighten your skin. You need to like, why is your nose so flat? I actually created that for myself. My mother actually loved my profile. Every time she would drive me to school as a little girl, I remember her looking over at me and just saying like, you have the most beautiful profile. And then I was like, well, what about the front of my face? But regardless, my mother loved the way my profile looked, which included the bridge of my nose. And so I don't recall ever having my mother, or anybody for that matter, telling me, oh, you're too dark, or you're too this, or you're too that. I remember her saying one time that she was actually glad that I would get darker in the sun because then I would never sunburn. So I wonder where it is that I learned that I needed to be different than what I was, that I needed to covet lighter skin, different eye color, all of that stuff. And I really believe that a lot of it had to do with just where I was growing up, because I didn't grow up with a lot of other Filipinos or Filipinas around me. I was surrounded by a very white Caucasian community. And so I guess that's where the standard came from for me personally. I was like, oh, well, I need to look like the most popular girl at school. And what does the most popular girl at school look like? Beautiful nose bridge, blue eyes, hazel eyes, very fair skin, blonde, all of the things that I wasn't. And all of the things, especially that I saw on TV, were not what I was. Like sometimes you wonder if you're looking back on the past and you're like, did I make that really a lot worse than it was? But I remember recently looking at Netflix and there being a documentary about 90s pop culture and the pop stars of that time. They had interviews of people from the 90s, especially the early 90s. And I remember watching these shows growing up and I started to get really anxious. I was like, I don't feel very good anymore. I don't want to watch this documentary. I was like, oh, I remember what this felt like, looking at these kids wishing that I could be them, and them not looking anything like me. And I felt so like removed from something that I desperately wanted to be. And essentially, it wasn't that I wanted to look like them. It was more that I wanted to be accepted, that I wanted to feel like I was a part of something, a part of a group, a part of the group that was liked. And popularity was really big back then. I don't know what it is like for kids now, for Gen Z. You know, you can still find your people, but back then it was either you were part of the group or you were part of no group. So I think that that's where a lot of my own personal discomfort came from with how I looked. But then to find that this is something that is pervasive throughout not only the Philippines, but Asia. Like in Asia, they want to look white. And I'm not just talking about like fair, lighter. I'm talking about like porcelain white. And they covet and they revere and they love people, celebrities that are really fair skinned, that have contact lenses that are a different color than their dark eye color, and they're dyeing their hair blonde. And I don't at all judge anybody for wanting to express themselves, or even people who do decide that they want to look fair and all of that. It's not about judging people's individual choices. It's the pervasive leaving out, ignoring, making you feel bad attitude that really pains me and really breaks my heart. And especially because we are now in 2023, and it's like, yeah, whatever, you know, it's like 2023 doesn't really mean anything, especially when it comes to the human condition, because we're constantly relearning the same lessons over and over and over again. In today's day and age, we are still being confronted with, you're too dark, you're less than because of that, you're mixed, and so you're better. And, or you're mixed with, let me clarify this, you're mixed with a lighter skin color, you're better. You're mixed with a darker skin color, you're worse. It's like, that blows my mind that people still differentiate. And it's not just here in the States, it's everywhere. And in particular in Asia, and in particular, oh my gosh, in the Philippines. And the reason why I just reacted is because I saw recently a TikTok, I'm not on TikTok, but I saw it on Instagram and it was reposted from TikTok, of this girl. Let me grab my phone. Yeah, it's this girl on TikTok. Her name is, it's just Ruthie, I think is her name. Yes. All right, TikTok. Shh. She talks about,
I wasn't and will never feel welcomed in the Philippines. For those that do not know, I'm half Nigerian and Filipino. I grew up being physically and verbally bullied in the Philippines for being black and having shaved hair.
I think she's probably like her late teens or early 20s. I don't think she's in her 20s, but I think she's still really young.
I have not been in the Philippines for about 3 years, so I decided to go alone for 3 months thinking that I would be treated differently.
And then she ends up questioning whether she actually wants to be there.
There hasn't been a moment where I don't hear people whispering the N-word every time I go out.
You go to the place where you feel like you should belong, and the people that you feel you should belong to are so negative and so hateful towards you.
It has been so hard for me to leave the house because now I know that everyone thinks I'm different, but I don't even know how I feel about coming back after this experience.
That's the part that gets me, you know, is that she's like, I don't know if I ever want to come back. I mean, I don't blame her at all. If I was confronted with that, I also would be like, screw this place. I don't want to ever come back here, regardless of whether it's a part of who I am and a part of my family's heritage.
Filipinos tend to worship Eurocentric features and those who are mixed with some type of white. But when it comes to anyone that is a shade darker than the expected standards, they are suddenly stigmatized.
There's still this like really strong leaning towards lighter complexion. They're mixed. They're not dark. They're not, you know, like showing the full spectrum of colors that we are. It's always, every time I see somebody who's considered to be beautiful, it's always mixed with a lighter complexion, a lighter, as she said, you know, it's like we revere and we uphold this standard that most people are not.
There are no real advocates for Black Asians, and it's disgusting. When will this stop?
If I were to comfort her, I would tell her, yeah, feel the feels, you know, be upset. You should be upset. I am upset with you. I just really hope that she can find it in herself to come back and to be that voice, to be that advocate, because that's where the change happens, is when not turn the other cheek, not, eye for, it's just, there has to be this middle way of continuing to lead by example. Like, that's the biggest thing for me, is to lead by example. And it's like, love who you are, be proud of who you are, share who you are, and learn from others who also look different from what it is that so far we've said is beautiful. And consider them to be beautiful. See what it is that they are on the inside, not just, oh yeah, you look like it, this other thing that I saw that's supposed to be beautiful. So that's my rant. That is my rant for today. And now I believe that the coffee is cool enough for me to make the mixture so that I can dye my hairs. And then we'll see how that works out. Shall we? I kind of feel the caffeine working on my scalp. I think that's just in my head, but still, it's kind of neat putting coffee on your head. This is gonna make me so jazzed for the rest of the day. What I read online is that I'm supposed to leave this in for an hour. There was one recipe that I saw where it was like, leave it in for 20 minutes and then do it 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. The one thing is that with all the coffee grinds that I put in here, now they're like falling out of my head, because like the coffee grinds are in my hair right now. So I'm like a little nervous to walk around the house and leave coffee grinds all over. It's like my unicorn dust, except it's coffee grinds. I'm gonna leave this in for an hour, and then we'll come back and see what happens, see if it actually does something with my grays. All right, this will do. Okay, so it's the next day. I didn't do a before and an after, and I'm not gonna show you a close-up of all of my gray hairs, so you're just gonna have to imagine that they're still there. I don't have a lot of gray, but I have noticeable gray. Yesterday, I ended up leaving my hair in a bun for pretty much the rest of the day. So I think I dyed it around, I don't know, like 12 o'clock, and then I didn't wash it until 10 o'clock at night. I was just kind of wanting to let the coffee sit in the hair, and I'm looking at it this morning, and I still see a lot of like white. It hasn't really made a huge difference in terms of like covering up my white. And the other thing too is that my hair really smells like coffee now. like it hasn't really made that much of a difference in terms of the color, but my hair does definitely have a bit of like coffee residue in it. And then also the other thing too is because I put coffee grinds in the mixture, it like ended up like leaving a bunch of coffee grind grime in my hair that I ended up having to wash out, and just like it was just all over. So I'm not really sure if the whole DIY coffee dyeing of the hair thing really works. I think what happened is I ended up creating a mixture that like the coffee wasn't that potent. I mean, it was dark because it was dark roast, but at the same time, like it wasn't, I think, as concentrated as it could have been. So I'm not giving up all complete hope that this could work for me eventually, but I just maybe have to do it 1 more, maybe 2 more times to see, and then like know for sure. So if you like this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for being there. I'll see you next week. Fil-Am. Goodbye.